Making headlines for this week of May 25th.
I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of extraterrestrials.
A follow-up on Obama's disclosure by Will Smith and more. G8 and NATO fallout. The ugly, the bad, and the good of what unfolded at last week's global meetings of leaders in Chicago. Connecting with the Andromedans. A human representative of the Andromedan Council shares some perspectives. And cannabis, marijuana, and hemp. The truth may just get you high, just not necessarily healthy.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. Last week, Cosmic Vision News ran the audio of what may very well be the closest the world has come thus far to a formal disclosure announcement by a sitting U.S. president. Last September, the White House opened a petition website where people could submit petitions. One petition was sponsored by Stephen Bassett of the Paradigm Research Group, asking the Obama administration to formally acknowledge an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. This petition received enough signatures to warrant an official reply from the White House. According to the official reply, the U.S. government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. In addition, there is no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public eye. CVN spoke to Tolek, a human representative of the Andromedan Council, and he shared the following comments regarding disclosure.
Disclosure, at least as the way I understand it, is a government entity like a U.S. government or a Canadian government or a British government. Because I live here in the States, I'll just address it from the perspective of the United States. The U.S. government official position that people have known about for years is UFOs and ETs don't exist. It would change their position of power, which they have right now. They've been telling, the storyline for years that they don't exist. And if they did that, they would be admitting to a greater public that they've been lying. And that's never a good thing.
Those who are supporters of Obama and believe that he is truly trying his best to find ways to implement all the strategies he promised he would, will recognize this to be Obama attempting to get the word out via Will Smith and his son. It seems very appropriate that a child would be the one to break the news. After all, a 12-year-old girl from Canada broke the news on CVN last week about the lies of the global financial system. These are the children bringing hope for the future of humanity. In Smith's interview on BBC One Radio in London, Smith quotes Obama in replying to his son's question about the existence of our galactic families.
I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of extraterrestrials.
So, the official White House response last September claims no evidence of life beyond Earth, and here now is Obama himself neither confirming nor denying the existence of our galactic families. Has Obama now gone rogue against the cabal? This is why the mainstream media has been so much against Obama, to try to keep him in line and under their control. Obama has had to toe their line in order to preserve his safety and that of his family. However, in recent times, it appears to be becoming more and more clear that Obama is fully aware of our galactic families. He is aware of the agenda that is being planned to transition humanity and our planet to a healthy, clean, peaceful, and abundant galactic star nation planet. Obama is taking more risks now because he is being protected by our galactic families. Steve Becko on the 2012scenario.com made two quotes on May 21st, one from Matthew Ward via Susie Ward from late last year, and another from a galactic entity named Haton. Susie Ward wrote that, "If you saw Matthew's last message, you know that Obama is totally aware of the presence of ETs. He can't announce this because of the power block, but it's also ET advice to wait a bit longer so those on the planet can continue to dismantle the Illuminati anonymously. Hatton added that Obama now knows that we have him covered and he can proceed without fear for his family's safety and his own. Media report what they are told, of course, but the truth is, now that he knows Earth's ascension timetable, he's negotiating with powers that be, either personally or via safe communication channels, to shut down Illuminati strongholds in his country, Europe, and the Orient. This week, on An Hour with an Angel, Grenner, the president of the Intergalactic Council, via Linda Dillon, commented quickly on this interview, confirming CVN's speculation that this was a planted conversation for disclosure by saying that we slipped it in. So here is where it gets a bit interesting. Grenner is saying we slipped it in. Recall also how Smith reacts when prodded by the host to find out more about disclosure, and then how he reacts when the host says not once, but twice that Will Smith is a member of our galactic family.
I know. I have the top secret information. I just can't share it. You don't think I've made all of these movies and not been briefed by the White House?
It makes sense now.
Of course. I know. I just can't tell you.
Will Smith's an alien. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying.
Oh, man. My son, every conspiracy theory, anything you throw at him, he loves it, believes it.
The conversation was immediately shifted to his son and conspiracy theories. Grenner went on to add that disclosure will come as a creeping light from both the people and from their side as well.
Do not lose heart, my dear friends, about disclosure. It is not going to be the Big Bang. It is going to be the creeping dawn. And I would suggest to you that you are just about there, and so are we. Now, the biggest influx of energy onto your planet at this time, and that we are getting many ripple effects from, is the love that is being sent to each and every one of you, including all forms of leadership from the heart of one. And this is having transformational effect. Yes, we are in contact with the G8. Yes, we are in contact with NATO. They observe us all the time. They are not blind. And so, yes, they are aware of our presence. They are aware of our desires. There is agreement amongst many nations already that this will be leaked and then announced and admitted to, let us put it that way. But they are very cautious about it. And what is interesting to us about this is that in many ways what the biggest shift has been is that your political leaders are more cautious about it than what you would think of as your military leadership. The military leadership has reached a point where they are understanding that we are allies of peace, that we are allies of technological advances, that we are allies of a new age in terms of what can be created and cleaned up for Gaia. So it is the political realm that we are interested in. What you can think of as the less powerful nations are all on board, and they have been for some time.
In a message from the Galactic Federation via Mike Kinsey this week, the Federation writes that the answers to your problems are known to us, and together with our allies, all will be taken care of in quick time. This is the type of information that people will need, and we will soon be addressing the world so that all will hear our voices. There will be a series of revelations that in different ways will shock all of you, no matter how prepared you feel that you are. It is almost certain that they go a lot deeper. Some of the claims will be absolutely unbelievable and full details given, not to satisfy people's curiosity, but simply to draw attention to the heinous crimes against you. These are the experiences that have been contributing to the mass global awakening that has been taking place at this time, giving each individual an opportunity to create, through divine free will choices, the kind of future that she or he wishes to experience. In the aftermath of the G8 summit and the NATO meetings last weekend in Chicago, let's take a look at the ugly, the bad, and the good. First, the ugly. Videos are again surfacing of police brutality being forced upon protesters. There also appears to be evidence to suggest that the police themselves were involved in masterminding alleged attempts at terrorism in Chicago. Russia Today, RT.com, ran a story on May 21st alleging that Chicago police were behind the alleged NATO terror plots in Chicago. This will not come as a surprise to many. In 2010, at the G8 and G20 summits held in Canada, there was evidence to suggest that undercover police put on masks, broke windows, and burned at least one police cruiser to incite group violence. This group was known as the Black Bloc, and they were allowed to do their violence almost undisturbed, while police beat, arrested, and detained more peaceful protesters elsewhere. There is a history of police corruption being exposed, and this actually is very good news, although the events themselves are not. The bad. To be truthful, it is a judgment statement to call things ugly, bad, and even good. As was explained last week on CVN, what one considers to be good or bad is based upon values learned by each individual, and thus each experience contains unique lessons for learning for each individual. Many lightworkers who have a deeper understanding of the bigger picture may have felt a bit of disappointment that some arrests of global leaders did not take place. To be sure, we do not know exactly that they did not take place either. There were meetings that were very secret. The mainstream media has speculated that these meetings were to plan acts of aggression against Iran. The secret agenda behind this is to install a Rothschild central banking system into Iran and get control of the resources. Some other sources indicate that the NATO leaders were informed that their power and control is waning, and that more countries are now aligning with the BRICS alliance in setting up a new global economy that will effectively strip power and control from the elitist cabal. Many would have loved to have received news of some kind that something more open and transparent had taken place. The emphasis, however, is on the good. As is happening all over the world, people in Chicago were standing up and speaking out. The Global Illumination Council and Russia Today were among sources running the stories of U.S. veterans throwing their medals onto the streets in defiance of a secret leadership that has not honored them and, in fact, has sold them out.
These medals represent a failure on behalf of the leaders of NATO to accurately represent the will of their own people. I will not be a part of that anymore. These medals don't mean anything to me, and they can have them back. My name is Jason Hurd. I spent 10 years in the United States Army as a combat medic. I deployed to Baghdad in 2004. I'm here to return my Global War on Terrorism Service Medal in solidarity with the people of Iraq and the people of Afghanistan. I am deeply sorry for the destruction that we have caused in those countries and around the globe. I am proud to stand on this stage with my fellow veterans and my Afghan sisters. These were lies. My name is Stephen Lund. I'm a two-time Iraq combat veteran. This medal I'm dedicating to the children of Iraq that no longer have fathers and mothers.
I was a nuclear, biological, chemical specialist for a war that didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. So I deserted. I'm one of 40,000 people that left the United States Armed Forces because this is a lie.
My name is Steve Ashton. I'm from Campbellsport, Wisconsin. I was a forward observer in the United States Army for just under 5 years. I deployed to Sadr City, Iraq in 2005, and I'm giving back my medals for the children of Iraq and Afghanistan. May they be able to forgive us for what we've done to them. May we begin to heal, and may we live in peace from here until eternity.
Hello, my name is Michael Thurman. I was a conscientious objector from the United States Air Force. I'm returning my Global War on Terrorism medal and my military coins on behalf of Private First Class Bradley Manning, who sacrificed everything to show us the truth about these wars.
My name is Maher. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 2001 to 2006 and in Iraq twice. I'm turning in my Iraq Campaign Service Medal and Global War on Terror Service and Expeditionary Medals for all my brothers and sisters affected with traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma, and post-traumatic stress disorder.
My name is Zach Laporte, and I'm an Iraq War veteran. I'm giving back my medals today because I feel like I was duped into an illegal war that was sold to me on the guise that I was going to be liberating the Iraqi people, when instead of liberating the people, I was liberating their oil fields.
My name is Scott Olson. I'm with me today. Today I have with me my Global War on Terror Medal, Operation Iraqi Freedom Medal, National Defense Medal, and Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal. These medals, once upon a time, made me feel good about what I was doing. They made me feel like I was doing the right thing. And I came back to reality, and I don't want these anymore.
My name is Todd Dennis. I served in the United States Navy. I have PTSD. I'm returning my Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal because it was given to me according to my letter, because of hard work and dedication and setting the example. I was a hard worker because I buried my PTSD and overworked myself in the military. And I'm throwing this back and invoking my right to heal.
People and police alike may wonder why officers are enforcing rules of the elitist cabal when they are not paid enough to risk their lives for such activities when they themselves are struggling. In a related event this week in Germany, police officers in that country took off their helmets and began marching with protesters there. You can be sure that those who enforce the power of the former elitist cabal are beginning to stand down and will no longer protect them or commit crimes for their benefit against humanity and our planet. It is interesting to note some of the things taking place and putting them into context of what sources are saying. Before the G8 NATO events, Russia announced that President-elect Vladimir Putin would not be attending the NATO summit or the G8 meeting, with Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev attending in his place. A couple of media sources started speculating that the Cold War was starting up again when it was later announced that President Obama would not attend this summer's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, summit in Vladivostok. While some media try to restart the Cold War, RT.com reported recently that there has been a reset of Russia-U.S. relations that has already taken place, but there are some Cold War prejudices still present, according to Russian presidential aide Arkady Dvorkovich. RT.com reports Dvorkovich as stating that there have been positive developments in the issue of a facilitated visa regime between the two countries, saying also that in the coming weeks, Moscow will take legislative steps in this direction also. So why might this be significant? Putin not coming to the G8 NATO, Obama not going to a summit hosted by Russia, facilitated visa regimes being established. If that means what it seems to mean, this would suggest that visa restrictions may have loosened a bit, if not somewhat. It is also worth noting a particular question that came up for Pentagon whistleblower Drake in an interview recently on May 16th on Freedom Reigns Radio. The listener asks the question.
There's around 400,000 or so Russian troops in the U.S. in Denver airport. Can you tell us what's going on about that?
Don't be surprised if you don't find out that there's been a coalition arrived at between the American military and the Russian military. Don't be surprised at that, okay? And that's not going to be easy to swallow or understand, but that's a little inside information that nobody has. It's been leaked only twice that I know of. This is the third time, and the only time I know of it that it's really gone public. But there is supposed to be a coalition of armed forces.
CVN has not yet been able to verify the number of Russian soldiers on the U.S. soil, as the listener indicates a very high number and a number of media sources are indicating a very low number. Regardless of the number, it would seem changes to visa restrictions would be necessary to allow the presence of the soldiers on U.S. soil. This would not support any argument at all that a Cold War is starting again, but that it is merely the corporate media propaganda. A video on YouTube, believed to be from a Munich press conference on December 22nd of last year, Vladimir Putin exposes the elitist cabal and their agenda. This would also clearly explain why the Western media came out so hard against Putin at that time, claiming voter fraud and anything else to prevent him in his bid to become president again. The corporate media attacks on both Putin and Obama do have strong similarities. At this time, there are several reasons for CVN to believe that Putin is one of the good guys, and this video helps to substantiate that. As well, former East-West Bureau Chief for Forbes magazine, Benjamin Fulford, reported in his update message from May 15th that the battle against the financial mafia that illegally seized power in the West is proceeding well. According to Fulford, the situation has reached the point where anybody with access to the Internet can see that the G5 terrorist countries, the USA, Germany, France, England, and Italy, and their shrinking group of slave states are being steadily isolated. The non-aligned movement that favors world peace now includes over 140 states, including the BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The warmongering NATO group meeting in Chicago, by contrast, only includes 28 countries. These 28 countries as a whole are dependent on financing from the other 140 nations. Jacking up the price of oil sold by NATO's Middle Eastern slave states is just not enough to pay the bills anymore. Sabotaging Japan's nuclear industry and forcing Japan to buy more oil has not been enough either. This is why there is this world financial crisis, which really is just a Western world financial crisis. The whole world has a message to the criminal cabal of Satan-worshipping oligarchs who enslaved the West. We want an end to war, an end to poverty, and an end to environmental destruction. We also want you to release, in a safe and responsible manner, all the energy and other technology that you have been suppressing. We want you to stop behaving like criminals and become responsible global citizens. In a monthly webinar by Sheldon Nidal with information from the Galactic Federation, Nidal offers an update on what has been going on lately from his perspective.
Iceland has already nationalized its banks. Now, this all started out in 2008. Iceland basically went belly up. The people in Iceland decided that they did not want to give all their money to the Eurozone banks. So what they wanted to do was to find a system that would defy them and allow for themselves legally to come back into a semblance of prosperity. Iceland first nationalized its banks, including the banks they got from Europe, conducted a referendum that changed the government and is setting up a new constitution. The constitution was set up so that people to be representatives to this constitutional Congress. The new constitution is based upon prosperity. It is based upon equality. Likewise, Ireland sued International Court to declare all national debt as a result of bank fraud and hence illegal. So we have Iceland doing this just by default, the Irish going and doing it legally. On top of this, the BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, have proposed a new economic system that ends the power of the global fiat monetary system run by the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. Now let's go further into this. What is happening right now is there is an actual transformation happening behind closed doors. People are meeting in sacred and secret places around the world, nations as well as individuals and groups, to create a new economic system and to create a new system of governance for the world. Now, all these things we just saw here, these people meeting, is the result of this. This process was first formalized by conferences and agreements reached in Paris and Monaco in April-May 2011. On top of this, independent and specialized groups first placed liens on bankrupted major corporate and private central banks between 2008 and now, 2012. The new governance was made possible when major national militaries and police forces came to agreements with liaisons from the secret sacred societies and the Garthans, which are the inner earth people. So what is happening right now is this. Government, in terms of its power, which is the military forces, has technically said that they are tired of perpetual war. They want to get rid of this perpetual war, fiat money, reserve note system. They want to replace it. They said, are you willing, if it needs to take these governments out of power? And they said yes. The same thing with police forces. Both Metropol and many other police forces around the world have come together and are now planning how to rid themselves legally of these various governments.
Keep in mind the recent legislation that Obama has passed. Republicans and Democrats alike have conspired to alter the original vision of Obama to improve services such as health care and others. Consider also the NDAA legislation that people are claiming will destroy the rights of ordinary people. The legislation was changed due to the influence of those who oppose Obama, including lobby groups. The media has been trying to sell this legislation as being bad for the people to discredit Obama, while some other sources are reporting that this legislation will help facilitate the arrests and detainment of those of the elitist cabal who still need to be detained and or arrested. If sources are correct in reporting that Russian troops are on U.S. soil, this might also suggest why Obama brought the U.S. back into participation with the International Criminal Court. Why have people not heard about all this before? Many North Americans may remember former anchor for the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather. Rather was unceremoniously fired from his position because he went against the corporate media establishment and reported the story of former President George Bush going AWOL, absent without leave, from the military. Rather is now hosting another news-oriented program and, at 80 years of age, is still hitting out against the establishment. Here are his comments about the media on a recent interview with Bill Maher.
When I watched you all those years, I thought of you as a straight-down-the-line journalist who was not. You certainly weren't in the world we live in today of Fox News and MSNBC. You just reported. Well, what do you think of opinion news, by the way?
Well, look, it's a free country, and I think it has its place. It's not my kind of journalism. It's not what I've dedicated myself doing, and I appreciate you saying that when I was in the anchor chair and a field reporter before that, my goal was to be an honest broker of information.
That's sort of why you lost your job. I mean, you know, you reported in the election cycle a couple of times ago that Bush, 2004 this was, had gone AWOL when he was in the National Guard, and CBS didn't like that and basically canned your ass.
That's pretty much what happened. Not pretty much, that's what happened. We reported a true story. One can argue about whether we got it the right way or not. But number one, a young George Bush, there's no joy in saying this, he got into a privileged National Guard unit, a so-called, quote, champagne unit, right, to make sure that he wouldn't have to go to Vietnam. Then when he was in the unit, he disappeared. He disappeared for a year while he was supposed to be on duty with the National Guard. Now, if you're a soldier in Iraq or Afghanistan, you disappear overnight. Right. You're automatically AWOL, which is a very serious offense. If you're gone for any length of time, you have deserted. We reported that story, not because of anything personal with George Bush, but if he's commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, this is information that people need. But the powers that be in the corporate structure were very uncomfortable with the story. They got pressured by the Bush administration and others in Washington, and it cost a lot of good people their jobs, including myself, finally.
Basically, we were getting onto the subject of consolidation in the media. I mean, in 1983, when you were, I guess, hosting the CBS Evening News, there were 50 media companies. Now there's only 6. They've been consolidated. And they are corporations, and corporations have a political agenda. I mean, they're anti-regulation, they're anti-tax, they're anti-labor. In that same period, we have seen regulations diminished, taxes go down, union membership go down. Is that a coincidence?
No, it's not a coincidence. One thing, in the 50s and into the early 60s, we had as many as 50 media outlets separately owned that could be said to have true national distribution or something close to it. Mm-hmm. Everybody can be and should be concerned about this. The constant consolidation of media, particularly national distribution media, with a few companies, no more than 6, my count is 4, now control more than 80% of the true national distribution of news. Now, these large corporations, they have things they need from the power structure in Washington, whether it's Republican or Democrat. To put it bluntly, very big business is in bed with very big government in Washington and has more to do with what the average person sees, hears, and reads than most people know.
If I would make a list in my head of what I think is important in this country, it would bear very little resemblance to what is reported.
You're getting at a very important point, which is the trivialization of the news. What I call the corporatization and politicalization of the news has led in no small way to the trivialization of the news.
Are you one of those people who truly believe that leaders of the world care about people? If so, you may wish to consider the following questions. Why would leaders agree to hold meetings like these in city centers? If you observe what happens at these events, you will notice that people protest. They protest because they are speaking out against the corruption and the crimes of what they are doing. What is the reaction of other people in the city? They complain, mostly against the protesters for disrupting traffic, creating noise, and allegedly preventing people from going to work to earn the salaries that generate the taxes to pay the elitist banksters and politicians. If leaders truly cared about the people in all the countries where these meetings were held, why not have the meetings somewhere in international waters aboard a ship where the lives of people are not affected and where millions and millions of dollars do not need to be spent hiring police officers to risk their lives, justifying to the world why a police state is necessary because thousands of people are protesting criminal activities of the leaders. The leaders know full well that meeting in a city center helps their agenda. They know people will protest. They want people to protest, and it helps them even more when that protest turns violent. This is why there have been stories of police officers causing the anger and violence among protesters. When this happens, the corporate media can show the violence and then sell that to the rest of the world as a need for greater powers of a police state. People willingly are giving away their rights and freedoms by reacting with violence because it gives the elitist cabal the ammunition they need to demand more security and make the people pay for it. A cruise ship to hold the meetings with several military ships and perhaps a couple of submarines. End of story. People's lives are not inconvenienced. Police and protesters alike have no reason to become violent. There is no need to do extensive city planning, security planning, and everything else. The meetings are a waste of time, energy, and money, and they sell the message that to the world that these meetings actually accomplish something. It is something more for them than for the people of the world. These meetings need the sensationalism that comes with protests, and particularly violent protests. In his weekly message, Sheldon Nidal offers that a great confrontation between the dark and the light is coming to a head. This struggle has thoroughly exhausted the governments of the West. These cabal-controlled regimes are at their wits' end as an immense financial crisis continues to deepen. The multiple threats to their stability have increased as the rigors of keeping to a debt-oriented economy are compounded daily by the ongoing rebellion of nations like Greece, Iceland, and Ireland, and this rattles them to the core. The arrogance of the large multinational banks is throwing further monkey wrenches into this tottering global predicament. Meanwhile, these same banks are suffering from their own meltdown as the number of liens placed on them accrues. The whole sorry mess teeters on the verge of collapse. As this house of cards wobbles, those nations focused on bringing down the current dollar fiat system are silently enjoying what they have already accomplished. The light supports their efforts in this, as do those who have worked to create the new and fairer economic system.
Look at this boulder picking up speed going downhill. It is running over all the false illusions that have existed. And what is happening is concrete agreements, structures, institutions will be shifting dramatically because the wave behind the creation is let us do something that works rather than simply maintains existing power structures and control. The people see it, see the new softness emerging, and reinforce it, support it. Oh, there will be some. There are always some till the very last moment who will try to maintain that wielding and, when necessary, yielding of power. That is not the majority. What has happened is that the majority, and this is what you think of sometimes as your tipping point, or how will we reach these billions of people in time, they are already being reached. They are already saying, we want a different way. The leaders, the bureaucrats, the military, they are all changing. All your world leaders are being penetrated with this universal core love that can penetrate anything. It is the energy from the heart and source of one. It is the creative force of the universe. It changes how world leaders think, how they feel, how they approach issues, how they represent the honor that they represent people. It is a shift away from trying to control and yield or wield, because it is either or in that duality, power, shifting to an understanding of cooperation. Now you look at many of your situations, and let us look for a moment even at the economics of many countries that are failing. Their financial systems have been proving that they need recalibration, that they do not work. And there are beings that are withdrawing, say, from the EEC. But that is a movement forward, because what it is doing, it is creating the reconstruction, the realignment with ways that work for countries, for people. Because we are not talking any longer simply about power structures. That is of the old third dimension. You have an expression on your earth that the emperor has no clothes. But what I suggest to you, the emperor died, and no one has been saying it. But now what is coming forth is a willingness, because the paradigm shift, the consciousness heart shift, in these meetings, concrete actions beginning to flow, decisions that are interdependent, cooperative ventures to begin to shift monetary systems, financial systems, social systems, intergalactic and galactic systems. What is happening is what you have been asking and praying for and knowing within your very core. Your planet is becoming kinder, and the reflection of that kindness, of that understanding of unity, that there is no such thing as isolation or separation. That is a fool's dream. They are coming to understand the need to create together. This is a milestone.
That was Archangel Michael via channel Linda Dillon on a recent interview on An Hour with an Angel. It is not likely surprising for those who understand what is now happening that police are starting to walk with protesters and Army vets are returning to share their stories of the lies and crimes that they were forced to commit against others of humanity. Numerous sources have talked about the shifts in energies taking place upon the planet, changes that are having a great impact on the consciousness, not only of humanity, but also of the planet herself. There have been pivotal moments when certain energies came to the planet, either from external sources, such as our galactic families, from our sun, and also from the central galactic sun. Those who have spent years going through their personal awakening journey are familiar with this, and some, more than others, are particularly sensitive to the energies on the planet at this time. All of humanity is now being exposed to increased energies of light that are contributing to the awakening now being experienced by people all over the world. It is an awakening that the elitist cabal has been desperately trying to prevent. Many will be understandably confused to try to make sense of not only the energetic shifts, but the fact that we are not alone in the universe, and that there are both good and not so good members of our galactic families that have been interacting with humanity, and how the darker members of our galactic families have been working more directly with their cabal partners on Earth to perpetuate fear, debt, and enslavement over hundreds, if not thousands of years. CBN recently had an opportunity to connect with a human representative of the Andromedan Council, one who is known by the name Tolek. Tolek offered some insights about recent undertakings by the Andromedan Council.
Recently, within the past month and a couple of weeks, the people of the Andromeda Council took over and cleared out the last undersea reptilian base on this planet. There were 100 plus cabal Illuminati, either reptilian and or reptilian human hybrids that were top officials in those so-named organizations. They've been sent off planet. They're awaiting War Crimes Tribunal on an Andromeda Council biosphere, the primary one. If a malevolent organization is a snake and the head is the top of the snake, the Andromeda Council has just chopped off the head. This represents the reptilian side of the cabal power structure that's been directing from the top down the human side of the cabal Illuminati structure.
Tolek offers a little bit of information about the not-so-good members of the galactic families that the Andromedan Council has been working harder towards neutralizing, and then I asked him if he knew of any civilizations, any reptilian civilizations that were good.
The good, the bad, the ugly. Here we go. I'll start with the bad and the ugly. Based on what I've learned, the reptilian people primarily responsible for the enslavement and abuse of people on Earth are the people from the constellations Draco, Hydra, constellation Orion. The two primary ones that the Andromeda Council people, led by the people of Procyon, have been dealing with the multiple underground and undersea bases are the Draco and Hydra reptilians. Bad guys, bad news, evil. Am I aware of what people would consider or call a good reptilian race? Yes, I am aware of one reptilian race. This particular reptilian race is completely vegetarian. And what I've learned is that they are gentle, they are intelligent, they are noble, they are wise, and they have no intentions of causing any problems with the people of Earth. Moreover, I'm aware that one of their people helped with some, if you will, backroom intelligence to help the people of Procyon and the Andromeda Council to understand how the Draco and Hydra reptilian mind works, to get at these Draco and Hydra reptilians and help take their bases out.
To learn more about the Andromeda Council or the work of Tolek, you can go to the website andromedacouncil.com. For there you will find information about the council itself, the Cosmic Alliance partners, archived interviews, and much more information to entertain anybody having and feeling a connection with our Andromedan galactic families. The world is now realizing just how badly the tobacco lobby groups have had their hands in creating legislation that criminalizes more natural products that have true benefits, and legalizes products that are full of chemicals and toxins that cause more harm than good, both for the smoker and those who must inhale it. The elitist cabal has known that there were certain plants that had abilities to temporarily lift people out of the limitations of their three-dimensional minds. This is where some people experience connections with the higher realms and begin to get glimpses of a world beyond our current 3D limitations. The elitist cabal and those under their control have worked long and hard to keep people trapped in their minds, to stay in fear and separation. They do not need people getting glimpses of anything beyond that which they want to keep humanity trapped within. Any issue that seeks to expose truth and break the barriers of what has been believed for so long is going to polarize people. The marijuana, cannabis, and hemp issue is just another one. Hemp and marijuana are varieties of the cannabis sativa plant. Marijuana can contain up to 20% THC. This is the psychoactive ingredient that gets people high when smoked. With 1% or less THC, hemp will not make people high. Hemp has significant commercial, industrial, and healing benefits. People are realizing the medicinal benefits of marijuana cannabis and the pain relief it brings to those with terminal illnesses or those who use it without medical supervision. As hemp cannabis has been passed off as being equivalent to other, more psychoactive versions of the cannabis plant, North America especially has lost out on the numerous industrial commercial benefits hemp could have provided and helped. It is alleged that over 25,000 products could be manufactured from hemp. It is a food that is among the most easily digested and can contribute to a healthier, happier life. A fairly recent story in naturalnews.com offers what is likely not surprising news, that cannabis has miraculously saved lives, also after doctors have declared the battle lost. At age 16, Kristen Peskuski had joint inflammation and numerous autoimmune conditions that resulted in organ and tissue swelling, including interstitial cystitis and lupus. After 40 different medications, she developed steroid toxicity, and doctors told her that there was nothing to do but to stay comfortable, try to reduce discomfort, and she would be fortunate to make it to her 30th birthday. She began juicing cannabis, and within 2 months, she was off painkillers and her back pain was gone. 2-year-old Amber was diagnosed with terminal brain tumors. Given a 10% chance of survival with treatments, doctors told her parents to take her home and prepare for the inevitable. A month later, her parents had reported the tumors had decreased in size and number. The family had been juicing cannabis and feeding their baby a few ounces of the juice each day. It is here where all the confusion begins about marijuana and cannabis. Most judge the plants to be bad because of their psychoactive effects. When these plants are heated, such as when smoked or cooked, only then do the plants become psychoactive. What most people do not know, however, is that the medicinal benefits of cannabis are destroyed when the plant is smoked or cooked. People have believed that being high was the pain-killing effect of cannabis, when in fact it is the raw plant itself that contains the true pain-killing abilities. Comparing smoked cannabis to raw cannabis, the article sums up the medicinal comparison in saying that, in simplified terms, the THC acid is not psychoactive in raw plants, but acts as a very powerful medicine, up to 400 times more powerful than when smoked. Maybe this is news worth getting high on. In another health-related story, how many of you have gone to the supermarket to do your shopping and have gotten frustrated with those sticky labels that appear on fruits and vegetables? Naturalnews.com posted a story several years ago explaining that those annoying little stickers actually have a purpose and can assist you when shopping for healthier produce. A quick search at the website for the International Federation for Produce Standards, PLU codes Galactic.com still shows the same information, so the story appears to still be up to date. Originally created to reduce checkout times, the codes are now being used for quality accountability and help to limit costs related to tracing bad products that have already been distributed. All 4-digit coded fruit is conventionally grown. This likely means that the soil was contaminated with pesticides, petroleum-based fertilizers, and the soil itself was probably depleted of nutrition. 5-digit codes are the same, but with an 8 or a 9 in front. If the number 8 appears before the code of the produce, then the produce has been genetically modified. It contains genes that were not put there by nature. If a 9 appears before the code, the produce has been grown to the standards defined by the National Organic Standards Board. This, of course, would be preferable to conventionally grown produce. The author of the story, Heidi Stevenson, reminds readers that if the code is 5 digits in length, check that first digit carefully. If it is an 8, put it back and consider making a complaint to the supermarket for stocking it. To round out our show this week, I'd like to offer a little bit more information from Sheldon Nidal's recent webinar. In it, he went through a lot of the changes that were affecting humanity at this time, and the parts that I would like to share are relating to a little bit about the legal system, and also he will go into a little bit about the new corporate structure that's unfolding. What many people don't realize is that the legal system that the world is currently functioning on, or at least most of the world, is a system called Admiralty law. Admiralty law is the law of the sea, or what is called commercial law. And commercial law is a set of rules consisting of acts or statutes. It's legislation that consists of acts and statutes. They are rules that have been given the force of law. This type of law cannot be imposed upon sovereign human beings unless humans consent to it. More information will come on an upcoming newscast. For now, here is Sheldon Nidal.
If we're going to talk about the great deal of change, we have to look at how is this coming about. What we have to do is change our legal system from what I like to call Roman law or Admiralty law to common law, which is the law of the people, which is the law of natural rights. So what is happening here is a preface. The major underlying law system on this planet, as I just said, is derived from ancient Roman law. It is the basis for the Dark Cabal's legitimacy through Admiralty law, which is simply the law of the sea, the law of the tyrant, the law of the new common law is based upon personal sovereignty and one's innate freedoms. This shift in law is part of the return of humanity to its natural state of sovereignty. Now, what has always happened on this world is people have seen that there really is a dichotomy between the law of the government, the law of the king, and the law of the people. This law of the people is based upon a natural rhythm. This natural rhythm is called natural law. This is a natural resonance when you are in sync with the universe. Natural law in America. One of the things that the Americans began finding even in colonial times, especially after the rise of John Locke and the Parliament of the late 17th century, is that they saw there was a natural law, a natural rhythm of the people that needed to be brought forth. Thus, to give you John Adams' a statement he made in 1765, you have rights antecedent to all earthly governments, rights that cannot be repealed or restrained by human laws, rights derived from the great legislator of the universe. And this, of course, is the basis for the Declaration of Independence, where we now said there are natural laws, and the king, using Admiralty law, using the law of the king, statute law, has said we have rights that can be taken away at the whim of the king. The Americans said differently. And so in 1776, they decided to create the Declaration of Independence, which is based upon the tenets of natural law. You have to realize that in 1776, all the patriots, and especially those of the Continental Congress, were in great difficulties because Philadelphia was occupied by the British. Therefore, they would come late at night to sign this document, and there'd be one or two at a time. They would sign it under one candle as close to the document as possible. They would then take that candle and have a guard that was outside to watch to make sure no British soldiers were coming, and immediately rush away from Independence Hall. That's how it was really signed. We're going to have a new corporate structure, a future perfect world, economic partnerships to sustain and maintain Gaia. Now, let's look at this and see what's happening in this game. The U.S. government is a private corporation. It and all other corporations are to be disbanded. A new business model, a socially responsible partnership, is to replace the corporation. That's why all these large corporations, these internationals, are going down. They're going to be downsized. They're going to be made to look at their local economic conditions and to serve their local communities, whether it be nations that their home worlds are in, so to speak, their corporate headquarters. They're going to be changed. The same thing is going to happen with banks. Banks are going to be oriented towards service instead of towards making money and greed. Banks are to be rechartered. The new charters are to limit the financial actions that each type of bank, savings, commercial, or investment, can legally take on. And investment banks were going to change because stock markets and commodity markets are going to be gone. All banks are to be fully Basel III, and then when they set up what's not supposed to be in power to the late part of this decade, but will now come into force, Basel IV compliant. Both of these are based on full transparency of banks, full accountability of the reserves, and any activities that they do being above board and moral. Debt forgiveness is an initial part of this new structure. It is essential if we're going to create a system based upon equity, based upon true worth, that we've got to level the system. We've got to make it absolutely no longer. Some people have lots of monies, other people have little, and some people know how to get more and more, and some people have a hard time getting more than what they already have. This is no longer viable. So all commercial organizations will start with a new prosperity-oriented system. And this is going to be this is why we need all these announcements, because it means how you bank is going to change, what banks do is going to change, what money is about is going to change, because we are moving into a new system, one based on prosperity. After prosperity, we go to the next system because consciousness is going up, and we are eventually going to be fully conscious beings of light, just as our space family is, both inner Earth as well as throughout this wonderful galaxy. Speaking of the next part, disclosure is what the process is generally called about moving to a point where we acknowledge that UFOs are really not UFOs. They're not unidentified. They're actually IFOs. They're identified flying objects. And so disclosure is to be announced after this initial phase of economic and governmental announcements. It is important for all of us to understand that we are not only moving into a new reality from a reality based upon scarcity and debt economics to a system based upon equity, to a system based upon true value and all that that means. And also, after that all is done, now we have to bring in the next level. So after the first shocks, both good and bad, the next part that happens is step 2, the announcements from the Galactic Federation and then the Agarthans and the Ascendant Masters. The announcements are to lead to broadcast by the Agarthans, Ascendant Masters, and Federation. The secret sacred societies are initially going to talk for the Ascendant Masters. The Agarthans are going to have their spokesman, and the Galactic Federation has, of course, been training for quite a period of time for who the spokespersons around the world are going to be. Out of this will come a next part, which is a timetable for the dispersal of technology. This is to be the second part of the announcements by the Galactic Federation. Heaven has now decreed it is time to do this, and that it shall be done.
So that is the unfolding consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is a part of the Inlight radio group of programs heard at this local time each week. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you not to ask what you can take from the world that exists, but rather, what can you offer to the world that is awakening? Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.
This is Thank You White Knights, and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit thankyouwhiteknights.com.